So not to be dramatic, but I have never been so excited to film a video, you guys. The top 10 books that have changed my life, changed my perspective. I am so passionate about reading. It is my main and only hobby. And I feel like not only does it give me an escape, is it something that expands my mind, but also as I've been going through a really hard time the past few years, reading has saved me in a lot of ways. So my hope is to inspire you and give you some really solid recommendations across all genres. And I recommend, before you forget, save this video so you could refer back to these recommendations, and also like it if you would like to see more book content from me. If you're watching this and you're like, Brittany, I wish I could read, I just don't have the time. You probably have the time to scroll on social media and watch television. So if you just replace a little bit of that time with reading, then you would be surprised by how much time you have. So what I'm going to do is go through all of my favorite genres and my top 1 to 2 books in that genre, starting with nonfiction, self-improvement. And these are the 2 that I'm not kidding when I tell you I think about things I have learned in these 2 books every single day. This first one, You Could Be Happy No Matter What, by Richard Carlson. I have listened to this on audio probably close to 20 times. It's short, it's so impactful, and it's not advice that you are hearing in every other self-improvement book that just gets recycled and recycled. For example, one thing that he talks about, there's a chapter called Life is Not an Emergency. So a lot of us are very stressed and we're rushing around and we're frazzled all the time. What we're worried about, what we're stressed about really does not matter. It's not life or death, and life is not an emergency. So I repeat that in my mind all the time. I even taught it to my kids. Next one is Mindset. This is a book that fundamentally changed my perspective on how I view everything. Most of us adopt a fixed mindset versus having a growth mindset, either in work, in relationships, in every aspect of your life. How unbelievably transformative this is. So this is another one that is a good listen. Like, you can listen to this on audiobook, let it get into your mind as you're driving, and it will really help shape your perspective in a positive way. Now into general fiction, good times, fun times. Project Hail Mary. This is being made into a movie. It's sci-fi. And when you hear sci-fi, if you get scared and you're like, I'm not into that, this one you will be into. It's a crowd pleaser. It has some of the best reviews on Goodreads of any book because it's just a good time. A guy wakes up in space and he doesn't know who he is, why he's there, and what's going on. And there is a plot twist that happens around the 25% mark that just changes the game. And I've heard the audiobook for this is phenomenal. And then Dark Matter. This is a book that is a sci-fi thriller. It explores the concept of parallel universes. If you're interested in that even a little bit, this is a mind blower, okay? I think I read this one in like 24 hours. I also want to mention, you guys, I have ADHD. It is hard for a book to keep my attention. So every single book that I'm talking about, they will keep you hooked from beginning to end. Next up, The Maddest Obsession. This is a dark mafia romance. And I don't have any interest in mafia. I don't like things that are too dark. The yearning of this man. She thinks that he hates her. Meanwhile, he is in therapy over his obsession over her. If you want a dark, spicy, good time, even if you have no interest in the mafia, which again, I don't. Oh my goodness. I actually am going to reread this, and I rarely ever reread. And then this one, it's called Perfect Strangers by J.T. Geisinger, who I would say she's in my top 3 favorite authors. This is a dark romance, almost like a thriller. But when I tell you the plot twist in this book, I sat up in my bed and I gasped out loud. I'm still not over the plot twist. When you read and love this book, then you would also enjoy her other book, Pen Pal. Now, like I said, I'm reading all genres. I've been going through and I've been reading classics in between, like fun books. I'll read a fun book. I'll read a classic. I just read The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I think it is very important that we go back and we revisit actual real literature because that helps develop your critical thinking. You could see the world from other perspectives and other points in time. And for me, I like to think like, what has endured? What is still relevant today? My number one favorite book of all time is a classic, and it is East of Eden. I never would have thought by the plot of this that I would even be interested in this book at all. I think about these characters as if they are real people. This story moved me. It brought me to tears. It made me think. The best way to describe this is a multi-generational story. It's a loose retelling of the story of Cain and Abel. And my number one favorite fictional character of all time that has ever existed, and I've read hundreds and hundreds of books, okay, is in East of Eden, and it is Lee. This is also one that you can listen to on audio. I find that I do connect more with a book when I read it, like physically read it. But when it's a longer book, a little tip, this is one of my reading hacks, is I will tag team. At night before bed, I'll read, but then I'll pick up, listen to some of it. I would read some of it. Oh my goodness, like this is so worth your time. My other favorite classic novel is The Handmaid's Tale. You've probably heard of it. Maybe you were forced to read it in high school. I encourage you to read it again. There's just a lot of implications, a lot to think about the role of women in society and the patriarchy and things about this that connect to today's society and just really gets you thinking. Now for straight up romance, usually romance doesn't really hit for me. I find it kind of just like, a little boring, but there are two exceptions. The first is this book called The Takeover, which if you look at the cover of this book, it looks like a cheesy romance novel. And I randomly read this with one of my girlfriends who was like, I'm interested in reading, but I want to read a romance. It's about a single mom. This guy is taking over her company. The role of her children and him interacting with her children, it touched me. Like I was sobbing, and so was my friend. So this was surprisingly beautiful. And then another really great one. This is just like a fun, light, good time with some depth. It's called Yours Truly. They are doctors and they're kind of rivals at first. But what I love about this book, it's quirky, it's funny, but it has heart. The main male character has anxiety, and the way that it's discussed and represented, I related to, I connected with. And then the main female character, she has a fear of abandonment and not being lovable, like deep down, which is a fear a lot of us have. And like the way that they navigate their fears, their anxieties, their struggles together was so beautifully done. 10 out of 10. And then in the historical fiction genre, I only have one book because it's not my favorite genre. In fact, I had no interest in it until I saw so many people talking about The Nightingale that I got curious and I decided to read it. It's like a World War II historical fiction. To me, I'm like, that sounds sad. Like, I don't want to be sad when I read. I want to be happy. I want to be entertained. But I read it anyway, and wow. Even if you think you have no interest in a World War II historical fiction, trust me, I didn't either. The way that I was crying at the end of this book, I think of all the books, this one had me crying the hardest. Like, I was blubbering, crying. Now moving on to the fantasy romance genre, which is a genre, when I first heard about it, I thought it sounded so lame. Like, I don't really love fantasy movies, fantasy books. Like, it just seemed very juvenile. I don't know. Like, I'm not into that. But somehow I eat it up. Worlds will end. Kingdoms will collapse if these two do not end up together. Nothing hits like a good fantasy romance. My favorite of all time is the Plated Prisoner series. This is a full series. I really only recommend the first 3 books. And the other caveat here is the first book in the series called Guild. I gave it like 3 or 4 stars. I wasn't going to continue, but I just listened to the second one on audiobook. And when I tell you, no character arc has resonated with me so deeply. And I'm not going to go like too much into the detailed plot synopses. I'm giving you the vibes. I'm giving you what has stayed with me about these books, okay? So this is a King Midas retelling where everything he touches turns to gold. And this first book, she has Stockholm syndrome. Like, she is a prisoner in a gilded cage to King Midas, and she's not a very likable character. And then her arc of finding herself, breaking free, the abuse that she endured, and finding her own power and strength is so moving. I read this at a time when I really needed it, and so her story just touched my heart and actually inspired me in so many ways. And I still think about it, and the way that she talks about and reflects on her abuse and her trauma and how she overcame it, I think is so beautifully done. Next one, just for fun, like pure good time, entertainment. I was eating this up. Fall of Ruin and Wrath. This is a spicy fantasy romance. What I liked about this one in particular is that it gets right into the action. Sometimes in fantasy books, it takes like 200-300 pages to even care. I love good, witty banter and tension. Like, oh, it's so good. I'm giggling, I'm kicking my feet. The stakes were high. It wasn't too long. So I think this is a good starting point into fantasy romance if you're interested in the genre and you could handle a little spice. And then I have a genre that I think is so underrated, so underappreciated, and I freaking love it. And that is nonfiction that reads like fiction. And these are my favorite three: The Fund, American Kingpin, and Empire of Pain. These are true stories that are so crazy you won't even believe they're true, and you will be glued to the page. And in a lot of them, I actually learn a lot. So I like that. I feel good because I'm being entertained and I'm also learning. Like The Fund is about Ray Dalio, most prolific investors of all time, but he ran his company Bridgewater like a freaking cult, and it was wild. And I'm sitting here in disbelief, like, how did this happen? How does nobody know about this? Empire of Pain is about the Sackler family and the opioid epidemic. And then American Kingpin, this guy created the Silk Road, which is basically like the Amazon of the dark web. It's going to keep you entertained, and you're also going to learn about finance and the pharmaceutical industry and all of these things. And then for reading setup and like Kindle and what I recommend, this is the one I keep in bed with me, the Kindle Colorsoft. I actually would say I don't recommend the Colorsoft. It is not worth the bigger price tag for the color. The color is very muted. It's not that satisfying, and you're not really looking at the cover. You know, you're reading the text, so it does not matter unless you're reading graphic novels. I don't think you need the Colorsoft. I actually love my Matcha Baby because look how cute and little and portable it is. This is my on-the-go book. But what you should know, because my best friend was like, oh, I don't want to read on a Kindle because it will strain my eyes and the blue light. No, this is e-ink. Okay, so it is similar on your eyes as if you were reading ink on paper. And you can read so much faster on a Kindle. You can look up words, you can adjust the font size, the brightness, you can read one-handed in bed, even if you think you don't have time to read. I have 2 kids. I'm a single working mom. I have an alarm on my phone that goes off at 8:45 every night. That tells me phone goes away. I put it in the other room. I set the alarm for the next day. And then I go into bed and I read. Just doing that, I have been able to read like 1 to 2 books a week for the past few years. Let me know your top 3 favorite books of all time in the comments, please. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to write them down because I'm always looking for recommendations myself. So with all of that said, thank you so much for being here, for watching, for indulging me talking about my favorite thing. And I will see you soon with a new video.